All right, welcome everybody. This is the Kubernetes SIG architecture meeting for September 10th, 2020. And today, just want to remind everybody to follow our code of conduct and be respectful of one another. And let's get started. Lori, do you want to, so the first item on our agenda is to talk about the sort of backlog items that we have in the SIG. Then actually, I prefer to put some project readouts last because they're sort of like, if we don't need them, we can, there's an issue they want to cover. I prefer that. Okay, so let's get started. Laura, do you want to present?
So basically, oh, I get the note. Yeah, I will stop your screen sharing, and then I will try to find. It doesn't. Okay, here we go. Okay, so basically, just a few things about this doc that you're looking at and its contents. To create the content, I just ran through the issues and pull requests that were labeled SIG architecture that either seemed like they fall directly within the context of the SIG, and you can tell me if I'm wrong and we just move on from that item if it's not relevant. Another thing was if it was a small fix that was docs related, that seemed to be either something you could close or it was just hanging around for a long time and maybe too long given the small size of the item itself, like the amount of work that was required to merge it. And then the second thing, or the third thing rather, that I was noting here is that any issues that seem to have been around for a while, like that are 2019. And then so the question to ask here would be like, do we want to help this along? Do we want to work with the SIG that might be the key driver of this CAP, or if there are multiple SIGs, helping those drivers with getting this across the finish line? Does that make sense? Any questions?
Sure. I don't know, there's quite a long list here, whether we have, how did you want to do this? Did you want to go through this here? Should we go through this offline? How did you do this with Node?
You could go through this offline. I think it depends on if we can, so I tend to do these things somewhat rapid fire. We can sidebar if any item requires discussion. And then here the recommendation will be, who's going to talk about this later? When will they have something to share with the group again? And maybe what is the key question related to the item that you want to solve? Does that seem reasonable?
Sure. Sure. Who do we have here today? Do we have a relatively small group, but let's see what we can get through, and maybe we should time box it and then come back to it if there's time, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
All right, so why don't we plan to spend 15 minutes or so on this, and then we'll go to the other agenda items. If we have time at the end of the meeting, we can go back to this.
That sounds great.
Okay, so this one is definitely the enhancement sub-project, and it seems appropriately done. I don't know the status of it. We're reworking the process for, or we're discussing updated process, and Stephen Augustus is working on that with the ticketing and things like that. So I don't know that there's much to be done there with that, other than it's in the realm of the
already an appropriate project and in a project backlog. Seems like that's at least categorized, and so the people on that sub-project can be driving that. So
yeah. This next one.
Well, just one thing is I noticed that some items have actual alpha beta status assigned to them and some do not, and they fall in the realm of policies or supporting process efforts. So is there a decision about whether alpha beta would be, that label would be used on non-code things that this
It's not
group deals with?
typically used, like we might pilot a policy or something like that, or some policies come in directly. Usually a lot of the policy changes just are quote stable right from the bat. I mean, sometimes we use them. I guess there's no consistency, I would say.
Okay,
Um,
so let's just put a note about that. Might be.
the third item is kind of related to that, right? We have these caps, and the caps the cap process was originally conceived around features,
Mhm.
and but we use it as just like the mechanism for getting feedback from people and
Yeah.
coming to consensus. And so,
Yeah.
you know, some of the things in the cap template aren't really appropriate for caps that are just like making policy changes or something like that.
Yeah, we have
Um,
this item here in the third row where this is dealing explicitly with that question. So,
Yeah, and again, that falls pretty squarely within the enhancement process team. And then to come up with a policy and decisions about it, and then bring it to the broader group to approve.
okay.
Um,
So,
let me close the door here 1 second.
so I think I will just put this there for now, this note, and then we can go through the remainder of the items. So then the action to take on this first item is just leave it to the enhancement subproject to decide what status it is and everything else, and then come back to this group at some point, right?
Yes, it's just it's a reminder out there. I don't know the priority compared to other things we're working on, but
Yeah, I mean, that's what they would decide.
it's still backlog, I guess I'd say.
Mhm.
Number
right.
two here, as far as I'm concerned, enhancement subproject has nothing to do with marketing of enhancements and never will. So that's my take on that one.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is the background here, John, is people file caps and then they go to social media and they end up talking about it and they try to advocate for it. And the question here is, should our we have some accounts that tweet out as well. Should we retweet things that way, right? To shine light on that, to get more contributors. But it's also been used negatively a lot of times to, browbeat us, is a simple way to put it. So we want somebody to set some policy saying, okay, if all the authors and the SIG leads sign off, then we can talk about it using the official handles or not, right? So
Right.
that is the background there.
I see. So it's about the use of the official marketing handles. That would seem to be a steering committee type of discussion, or
Yeah, the steering committee can sign off on it, but
okay.
we want the people responsible for the enhancements or the architecture to
set
the policy. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, we can work on that, and the enhancements is the policy around that. I think there's some valid uses. Like one of the reasons is when a functionality goes to beta, like, or even in alpha, like we may want to get and solicit feedback. That's one of the points of alpha. And so if the message is sent out properly of, hey, try out this crazy new thing, see how bad it is, and give us some advice, as opposed to, hey, here's a new feature to run in production, then I think we're okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think that you have their general gist set up. It's basically, steering committees involved, but not until SIG architecture and enhancement subproject set the policy. So I think it starts with enhancements, goes to SIG architecture, then to steering committee. Does that sound right?
Yeah, basically.
Okay, and then here we go, and then steerco. Okay. The next one is the feature versus policy. So I think it's roughly the same flow as before, minus the steering committee. Or maybe not, but at least, you get the actual KEP sorted out.
Yeah, I think we usually like to have some folks besides the sub project sign off on changes to that policy.
Yeah.
Like to get some more consensus.
I think this
We don't
has
need
not actually had
we don't
any
need
work
steering.
done on it, right?
I
Not any
mean,
substantial.
it would be in the scope of the sort of additional evolution of that process that we're working on in enhancements.
Okay.
But
You don't need steering for this one, though.
Yeah,
John.
you need steering for sure.
Okay. So, all right. So we can talk about this next Tuesday because we'll cover enhancements, policy, and process. By the way, if you're interested in enhancements, policy, and process, there's a meeting next Tuesday. If you're a first timer, so you can join. Should we move on to grammar typo?
What is that? I don't. That's not familiar to me.
Yeah, it's about the template. It's a basic inconsistency in the template. It doesn't seem like an intensive effort here unless there's a broader discussion that needs to happen.
Well, this is just a. Yeah, I don't think there's any more discussion that needs to happen. It's just whether we want to take the time to fix it. It might even be obsolete since the
We should at
template's
least put
been.
it on the enhancements of the project so it gets seen by the people looking at that area.
Okay.
It's
So-
area enhancements, but I don't know if there's a project board. I don't actually for enhancements. Do we have a project board for that?
For enhancements?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's make sure it's on the project board then. Yeah.
And it doesn't need to come back to SIG Arch either.
No.
Yeah.
Leave it there. Like leave it, confirm it there. All right, so that's easy. And I can ping Tim as well in the channel to see like if he'd like to make the change himself, because why not?
This one looks similar. This is detailed. This is the detail of how depth validation works. I think just same treatment. We don't need to. It's already on the board. It looks like.
Sure, so then that's where it should be resolved. And then this one. It's not
That
in
should
the
add to that board. Yeah,
It should be added?
probably. I don't know. Without looking at it, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Somebody needs to investigate whether it's a valid issue or not, and so it should be on the enhancements subproject board.
Okay. Yeah, this is Nabrun's question. Is this something we can close? So to decide whether it's, so decide if it's valid in enhancements subproject, right?
Well, yeah, I guess the process for any of these things typically would be you assign it to enhancement subproject board if that's what it's the most appropriate place, and then somebody will pick it up and triage it from there.
Yeah, but I'm just asking if that's the actual flow. So like it should go to the enhancement subproject, and then that group should decide if it's valid. If so, then it should be resolved there and shouldn't bounce back up to this group.
Yeah, it doesn't need to bounce anywhere else. Yeah.
Great. Cool. I think we're moving on to this one. Warning mechanism for use of deprecated APIs. So I think the API machinery is primarily driving this. There's a reason why I put it here. Oh, I think because it was merged. So is there anything else to do?
Well,
Yeah.
the issue stays open until it goes to GA. Right now, it's in beta.
Yeah.
Okay, so it gets merged per step, I guess, and then, or there's a merging that happens per step, and then this remains open until it's stable.
They're in the description, Travis beta 119 GA 121.
Cool. So I think it's fine. Leave as is.
Yep.
Okay, making KEPs transparent. This is an enhancements topic. We don't have to cover it for now. But then I guess you would want to bump it up to the broader SIG architecture at some point, just for like some final review, or would it also be settled there?
I think this one would be settled there.
Okay.
As far as, yeah, it's just
Okay, so
tooling.
I'll just put it there. Okay, standard topology labels. Okay, this was here for some reason. I think just the same question, just me trying to wrap my head
So this
around
one,
the process. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I'm having really terrible Zoom experience today.
It's okay.
This one is merged, and I have a PR that I'm working on. It's mostly docs.
Okay, cool. PR in progress on docs. Awesome.
So this is a policy that is in effect now.
Yeah.
Do
Should
you
be
have
close.
remaining work on this with respect to, Jordan, we have the warnings for this already, but we don't have the turn off. Is that right, David or Jordan?
Yeah, the automatic off is still in progress. That was probably going to be done in 120. It's not until 122 that the first ones expire. So
Right.
120 is when I think David was going to get the mechanism in.
That the warning was implemented in 119.
Yep.
Mhm. So that's the last piece, and then.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Cool. But you still keep the issue open until that last piece is done? Just in,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now this is for the APIs, but I think there's a discussion later in the agenda about how we manage feature gates in a similar way. Is that so? But I guess that's irrelevant right now.
Okay. There's also a reason why I put this here. I think it's the same. Like,
I think this was completed and we closed. We should make sure the proposal is marked as implemented.
okay. And then it
So
would be
David,
actually something you could close?
David, since that's your issue, you want to, I think David, yeah, you want to wrap that up?
One sec. Jordan, didn't we have like a long email conversation with some VMware folks on this? And I know there was a churn on a PR, but I don't know if it had merged yet.
The schema,
yeah,
the schema is not the same as the discussion around how you use. So the how do we use conditions discussion is still open and ongoing, but the here are 5 fields in a consistent type.
Yes, I'll go ahead and close my issue.
Yeah, thank you.
That one's the one with the discussion about whether we default to positive or negative language and all of that. Okay.
Yeah, we don't not default to negative. Very wise.
So sorry, just in summary, is there an alternative step other than marking is implemented and closing, or?
Nope, that's all for this.
Nope. All right. Awesome. And can close. I think we're over time, but we're also making quite a lot of progress. So.
Yeah, let's. This last one's just still in progress and under discussion, so it's just continue. There's
conformance profiles.
And that's
okay.
Conformance subproject. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So it
should be on the project board or whatever.
Yeah, should go into the related project board. And I also marked a few items here, just strictly for enhancements. And then I think this is the remainder for the issues. And then for the pull requests, they're kind of tangential to your scope in most cases. So this could be asynchronously dealt with probably.
Okay,
But
well,
we can also wait.
let's do what we said and jump into the other agenda items, and if we have time, we can come back to those. So, how do I share? Okay. All right, next item here. I assume this is Wojciech, or if he's on, or work group reliability.
Sorry, I was trying to find the right window and unmute myself. Yes, it was me. Yes, so for the record, like we've been talking a little bit about that like a couple meetings ago. The proposal went out like yesterday. The official proposal for the working group, with a specific proposal for the charter, like all the things, all the questions from the working group.
Did we lose him?
Prerequisites for creation. One of the things that we need now is like SIG sponsorship, official SIG sponsorship, and like we would like also to ask for sponsorship from like SIG Arch. So yeah, obviously, like if you have any feedback on the charter or anything, we are still open. Like the initial set of, or I should probably mention that the initial set of chairs that we propose is David Eads, Steve Kuznetsov, both from Red Hat, and myself. So
right.
Yeah, I think that's mostly heads up and ask and ask for sponsorship. And obviously, if you have any feedback, we are happy to hear that too.
Thanks for doing this. The three of us, me, John, and Derek, will review and give our +1s on the PR. Is that okay?
Yes, thanks.
Can you link the PR in the agenda there?
I didn't yet open a PR. I just opened like the initial thing I had to do was like start the email, and only then like link the email from the actual PR. I didn't yet get to it since yesterday, but I will link it once I open it. Hopefully today or on Monday.
Yeah, +1 in principle. Let's do this.
Yeah. Me too. All right. Okay, excellent. So next, deprecation windows for beta API. Tim.
Hi all, can you hear me? I've been having some Zoom trouble today.
We can.
Good at the moment.
Okay. Great. So this came up in a conversation with a customer recently, and I thought it was an interesting point that we now say we're supporting a year, right? And our deprecation policy for removing a beta API is 9 months. This makes it difficult for somebody who's building a controller to support all versions, all supported versions of Kubernetes without having to support both explicitly a beta API and a GA API. And the question was, should we consider extending the deprecation of a beta API to 4 or maybe even 5 quarters so that it's possible to have a controller that only implements one of those APIs so that they can support the oldest version and the newest version at the same time. The practical implication obviously is getting rid of a beta API would take 6 months longer. The customer impact is some amount of simplification. They don't have to support multiple API versions. I thought it was interesting, not self-evident, and worth discussing.
So right now, we introduced a beta API. We don't immediately deprecate it. So if you're just talking about availability, it's typically available for some number of releases, then is deprecated and the deprecation period kicks off. And so with the policies we have today, a beta version will actually be available for all supported releases.
It's possible, according to the rules today, to suppose I have beta version in version 20, and in 21 I introduce the GA version and deprecate the beta version.
Yep.
In 23 I can remove the beta version, but 20 and 19 are still supported. Or 19 will go out of support, 20 is still supported, so I don't have the GA version yet.
Once you announce deprecation, it's 3 releases.
9 months. It's 3 releases, 9 months, according to what I just looked at. So if they want to support all 4 supported versions, they have to support both beta and GA and read or figure out which ones are supported in the API server that they're talking to. Now, I imagine a lot of controllers are going to want to do that anyway, so they can support even larger windows. And maybe that's our answer, like just do it, sorry. But I thought it was worth throwing out, like if we supported 5 releases for beta, if we made it 5 quarters, then they would be able to say the GA version was introduced. As soon as the GA version, that GA introduction hits the oldest release, they can switch to the GA and know that it'll be supported on everything.
I think practically, I've never seen an API show up in beta in one release and then be GA the next release. And so I'd be hesitant.
It doesn't matter how long it's been beta. It might have been beta for a long time. The point is, when they introduce the GA, they can get to the leading edge of that window and have the beta be removed, but the trailing edge of the window doesn't have the GA yet.
Yeah. So one related issue here, Tim, is I think folks are going to bring up whether we should be sticking to 1 release per quarter, is what I'm hearing through some of the discussions that I saw because of the 119 extended release stuff. So we might have to revisit the correlation between the releases and the quarter thing as well.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our deprecation is written sort of assuming that 1 quarter was 1 release.
Right.
Though we included like whichever is longer language. I'm not sure that it actually makes sense if the releases are, if we go to biannual or 4-month releases or something like that, we probably want to reevaluate the wording. So I said 5 quarters on that assumption, but you're right. What I really mean is the officially supported window, it would be nice if beta and GA overlap for the entire window.
So if I recall correctly, the supported window is stated in terms of time, 1 year, and the deprecation policy is stated in terms of releases. Is that correct? Because that could cause some confusion as well.
I think the deprecation policy calls out releases or time, whichever is longer.
I see.
Anyway, we don't need to wrestle with it here, but I thought it was a challenging topic, which has real implications for our ability to clean up our own messes. And in light of a really interesting blog post, which I'm sure you all read, it made me wonder if we should be more generous with our deprecations.
Yeah, so we should at least log an issue and track this, Tim. So we'll revisit when we figure out the release cadence, I guess.
Which repo should we file an issue on this?
Just Kubernetes is fine.
Okay.
And mark it as SIG architecture.
You got it. I will do.
All right, thank you, Tim. Okay, I guess we're into the sub-project readouts, and Dim's pre-informed me that there's nothing to report for code.org, so it's Jordan, you never gave me the thumbs up, but somebody's putting text in here, so whoever that is.
Yeah, so just a few things to call out. As SIGs are doing their health checks of stuff that they have in progress and are working on taking features that actually were well soaked and have good feedback to GA, there's some discussion around how feature gates progress to GA and sort of the interactions around the deprecation policy for those. So I linked to one of those where we realized that we have some guidance that's more user-facing, and we need to flesh that out and make it more concrete and specific for developers progressing a feature to say, like, do this on this release, then do this on this release, and maybe make some of that automatic. So that will feed into some doc updates and maybe some implementation changes to simplify that. By far, the most interesting API change that is in progress is the dual stack service API PR. So I linked to that. That is exercising a lot of the topics that we have wrestled with over the past years around pluralization and dual representation of the same data, and old clients and new clients and patches and updates, and it's all there. So if you're looking for greatest hits of thorny API issues, that's where you want to go look.
Hey, Jordan, before you continue, around this first one, the discussions around mechanics of feature gate progression, I saw that on Slack. I suggested coming to the enhancements meeting. Do you think are we talking about tooling around how we manage that, similar to how we did with API betas, or is this more just around guidance in the process of how people manage their feature gate? Like, I guess that seems like an appropriate
way. Like really concrete guidance of like, what should you do when your feature goes to GA, and what bits should you flip, and how long should you leave them there, and when should you remove them? And right now, that's not super easy to understand. And so we want to be consistent so that people using these components don't accidentally think they're turning on or off a feature when the lever they're using is actually inert. And we also want to give people warning for at least a release, ideally 2 releases, that a feature is now like graduated, and if they were explicitly enabling it before, give them a heads up that you don't need to explicitly enable it. It's on all the time, and you should stop setting this option. So
I see, and a warning that if they're trying to disable it and it's not disableable.
Yeah, this came up as SIGNet was scanning through all the gates that we own, and we're wondering, like, why are these still here? Can we just get rid of them? And realize the mechanics around it are unclear. And I started on a PR, and then I realized it was even less clear. And so here we are.
Where was I? There are a few normal single field edition proposals or approved designs that are in implementation phase. You can see those in the API review project if you are interested. And then I wanted to call out 2 beta APIs that are on the ticking time bomb list of beta APIs that have not made progress to GA. Right now, these are scheduled to be deprecated in 122 and removed in 125. And so both of them have associated projects and KEPs and issues, but now is the time to make progress on these. So I have pinged the owners of those and will ping them again, but just for visibility, these are the 2 long languished APIs that I am most eager to see make progress now, so we don't cut it close in the 122 to 125 timeframe. That is all I had.
Thank you for bringing those to our attention. And Lori, so you're doing the same health check with Node you did already. So that's the PDB and with
Oh.
apps.
I didn't do that. They did it themselves.
They did it.
Oh yeah, SIGNode is the author of this whole concept. They're setting the lead here. Doing great.
Okay, well, the cron jobs one comes on a SIG app, so that would be a valuable thing to do there if you're not already working on that.
Trying to. If anyone wants to help there, that could be helpful.
All right. Well, is there anything else anybody wants to discuss, or we'll go back to going through our health check? All right.
Well, the only other thing that came up was Docker shim deprecation. Does anybody have ideas or thoughts around how we are able to get rid of Docker in a fashion? We've talked about this many times in many different things. I've started an email thread. I have a PR for just starting the clock. And if you have any thoughts, we can follow up there. Just wanted to make sure that you all heard from me here. Tim, were you saying something?
Oh, no, sorry. I thought I was mute. I was just typing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, back to you, Laurie.
All right, so yeah, let's go back to our sheet. I'll share again. All right, so I think the next item here, this is another enhancement subproject. So I'll just put that here. It's the inconsistent instructions for
Looks
kept
like a
file name. Yeah. And it should also be resolved there, right? Doesn't need to escalate up. Okay. Okay, we're having a big conversation about this at the moment, winding down the working group. And that will be discussed at the next SIG release meeting with the presentation from the working group folks. So I guess that one's.
Any more input needed from SIG Arch on that?
Yeah. All right, enable running conformance tests without beta REST APIs or features.
Lauren, is this complete? I thought we had this one done.
Phase 1 and Phase 2 are complete. David's request for a Phase 3 is not complete. So as of 119, conformance tests run and pass without any beta features enabled or APIs enabled.
What is David's request for Phase 3? Where is that? I don't seem to.
Phase 3 was identifying optional GA APIs.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have a way mechanically to do that right now, right? Programmatically, that's just a.
We don't. So that should go in the conformance
subproject board?
Yep.
Yeah. Why don't we, frankly, create a separate? Well, it's fine. I almost wonder if that's a separate issue, right? Like you have this done, like, because that's going to require us agreeing on what's optional beyond just what we do in.
I would be happy to tackle that as a separate issue. It was requested to make it part of this issue.
Okay, that's just paperwork. Okay.
But
What
there's a
about-
big distinction, right? Like between just being GA and being required.
So the
It is,
whole
but
performance thing
I think it's
applies
interesting, so.
required. Right now, it's definitionally, if it's in conformance, it's required. Like that's like if you read the conformance documents, they're like, okay, this applies to quote required APIs, but there's no criteria for what's required other than we agree to put it in conformance or not. Honestly, right?
Right. I think the issue is that some things can accidentally be made part of conformance. So RBAC is the quintessential example,
Yes.
where in all of the CI clusters we run, they have RBAC enabled, and that is a reasonable way to manage permissions. And so some tests need to grant permissions, and so they started granting RBAC permissions, which so it's in conformance as a side effect. So
Yes.
preventing accidents like that is what we're wanting to do.
Yeah, we have the same thing like with not just optional APIs, but even optional like components like metric server, right? Can't really test auto scaling without it. So.
Do you want to discuss this further, or should it stay?
Not here.
It is?
I mean, I think we can have this discussion in the conformance meeting if we want.
Okay.
But it should be on that board, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll leave it open until then. Okay, this is part of the whole process. So
Yeah.
maybe this is also enhancements.
Well, this is a production readiness subproject, which like I think this is all basically merged. So do we I just assign it to me and I'll go make sure that we've actually tied up all the loose ends to make it the policy, but it should all be ready to be merged now.
Yeah.
It should be ready to be closed now.
Okay. Next one. Clarifying the use of notable labels when Kubernetes migrate components. I think this one is on this list
Thought
because
this was
of reasons.
Because of what?
I think this is another one where I was like, is this all done or not?
I think this was a docs change that Clayton merged last cycle or so.
Yeah, we still need to do the final bit, which is we remove the deprecated ones. And that's going to be impactful. So like we're in the point where the next step could blow up people's clusters. So I'm going to be a little cautious about that.
Okay. So there's still a final bit remaining about removing deprecated parts. Is that right?
Changing the default to off for the previous alpha. Well, the previous behavior that was never intended to go in, but still exposed. And so we might extend that period as necessary.
Okay.
Do off, not off. OFF.
Okay. Support for encrypted images. Let's look at this. Yeah, this is just kind of stalled maybe.
So this seems like a node thing to me, assuming I understand what it is. Not sure that we need to be particularly involved in that.
Okay. Okay. So don't see a need to do anything here. Okay, that's all of the issues. And then if we go to the pull request, So this one was marked, Stephen was asking in February, is this still relevant or being worked on? And then I just repeated it.
What we do is we include the YAML of all conformance tests. What are they asking for here? Like a pretty version of that? There's like a report.
I think he was just asking,
Okay.
you know, is it still live, relevant?
I don't know. I kind of think we probably should just close this, but I'll have to look at it closer to see.
Okay.
I know it's not actively being worked on. It probably needs to be discussed with the CNCF a little bit more. They have contractors who have been trying to keep it. They sort of try to keep like a separate document up to date over in the Kate's conformance repo in CNCF. And this was a desire to maybe not have them have to do that because they continually fall out of date. So like the most recent docs over there are from, I think, Kubernetes 1.15. But as far as I know, there's no progress being made, and if I feel like there's no wood behind this arrow, nobody's willing to step up to take it, and we should probably cut our losses. But I think it needs a discussion with CNCF.
Okay, who wants to check on that? John did, but also I can't see who else is talking.
Aaron, Smith XP, Aaron, but that's fine. I
That's
can.
Aaron. Okay.
The DNS autopath would be a SIG network thing. I don't think SIG architecture has to get involved.
Okay. I just deleted. The only reason why it's here is it was just filed a while ago, and I think the last update by a person was this April. But I guess, oh, it's in the new to-do. So I'll just strike this one from the list. Propose kept teardown pressure and teardown priority. I put the last comment in here because it seems to go through a lot of bot comments. And the last comment was from the creator itself, themselves. And it's not clear if we agree with that or not. I'll highlight it. This one.
I mean, it looks interesting. I'm not sure that this is the right group for it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess you have a couple super busy.
Yeah, if we go to CVE, that would be something that the security committee would want to look at and see if they agree.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like they've reported that way. I haven't read this issue at all, so I'm just.
Yeah, the CVE aspect I think is a little bit of a red herring. This is a significant operational impact for someone who is in that scenario. If you take out the CV side, SIG node and SIG scheduling are probably more appropriate.
Okay.
I commented on this a year ago. Huh.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a little bit old, so. But we should just let them handle it, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Oh, I was just noting here that this is good. Like we have very recent activity on some of these items, like old items. So you can just see them all in one place to know that there's been something happening on these specific items. This is another one that's related to production readiness.
Yeah, that's just a PR against that, but I don't know this. I think last we said it looked okay, but it needed updates or something, never got updated. But I don't know the status of the sidecar cap now. I haven't followed through with it since.
Yeah, it is stalled, pending work and Signode.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the short of it, stalled pending Signode efforts. Okay. Then there's a couple really small doc fixes. So there's a couple from this person. They didn't actually sign the CLA. So I'm just wondering, can somebody, like, would it be a norm to have somebody else just like open up, make the change, and then close this existing item because they haven't responded?
I mean, if it's yeah, somebody else could fix it if they've disappeared. Especially if it's simple, but it looks like it's a conformance documentation thing. So just make sure it's assigned to the conformance subproject and on our board, and we'll get to it eventually, I think.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be a easy first issue. Like you could just spin up a new issue, say, hey, can somebody who has signed the CLA fix this? And then you close two things, and then you don't have to do it yourselves. And you give like someone who's brand new a quick win.
Yeah.
And, like that would be how I would address some of these other things.
Is someone with a CLA, right, Laurie?
I mean, maybe they don't want to sign for some reason, you know, but it still seems to be needed. It's a fix, so nobody here has to fix it though. It could be someone brand new. We'll put it in the subproject board though, for sure. Yeah, I
That's
guess.
just net. I mean, they just need to. That's just a paperwork issue.
Yeah, but it's been sitting around for months, so don't know if they're going to do it.
Okay.
I'm going to jump to this one because it's kind of similar. Here is an example of somebody who's made a few contributions to fix the links, but they're not responding super quickly, you know, a couple months. Like they've made the changes in June or July. And so do you want to wait for that, or do you want to just do it? The suggestion to, hey,
just close it.
Well, like also these are really simple fixes, I think. Just fixing broken links. You could batch these up in an issue, throw a good first issue label on it, and have someone else do it, and again, get the work done and not be blocked.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. It's just not on anybody's particular radar, I guess.
Yeah.
And doesn't high priority. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it probably never will be, right? Or, you know, it'll be like, so this is, I think, the reality to consider. Like and this is a conversation I started to have in API machinery and also in Contribix today. It's like, do you want to have like reviewers who are really doing a lot of high intensity work also have to take ownership of reviewing these typos?
And the main issue is that these low impact, low priority changes are touching the same files that do have important things in them, and so like the approvals, like you can't easily just sort of batch them and say, oh yeah, this all looks fine. Like you actually need to check and make sure, okay, this isn't changing functionality or changing the design in a meaningful way. It's just fixing a typo. So I think that's where these things normally get stuck. And it's hard to batch sort of in a sweeping way across components, or like, I'm going to fix this typo in every design, but in the process I touched like things owned by 5 different SIGs with different approval records and stuff.
But say, for example, like there's the simple typo in a doc, right? Like changing list. That was the exact example today. So that's fairly low touch, right? And then you might have some of these that are higher touch, but maybe there's a promising or more engaged contributor that you could assign something like that to, because they will have the context to be able to make the changes as a batch, or at least, you know, take the workload off of other people who are quite swamped.
I think it is fine as it is, Laurie. We expect the bot to pick it up and close things out.
Okay.
If they are not responding, direct responded, and they didn't respond back to that after that, you know, it's okay.
Okay.
You know, at some point you have to say, hey, I'm not going to clean everything up, right? It's
Right.
on the floor. It's going to be there.
It's about not being a perfectionist, but
Yeah.
letting the most important thing. Got it. All right. Well, we've gone through pretty much everything. I guess there's just, wait, is this the one that, no, this one is a fixed link with a looks good to me. Assigned to a really busy person. Is in the enhancements bucket, you know, do you want to help out or not, I guess would be the question.
I mean, I think the things under the SIG folders are the SIG's responsibility. I would lean on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay, folks, we're actually over time, so we better wrap it up. I think we got through almost everything, so that's good.
Yeah, you did.
Thanks a lot for doing this, Laurie. This was
Hey,
very
no
helpful.
worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, if you have any feedback, like, please send it over, even if it's, you know, that was terrible. Like, I don't mind. It's not a personal issue.
Necessary.
Okay.
So,
There's
all right.
plenty of things we have dropped on the floor in the mailing list too, which haven't made it into an issue. So at some point we'll try to dig those up as well.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend and week. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Bye.
Hey.